Sabrina, welcome to Real Pod. I'm so happy to have you.
I'm so happy to be here.
First things first, you might match me with just the speed at which we talk, the amount of which we talk. I'm like, this is going to be great. I'm the same way.
It's so funny because for so long I was like, oh my God, nobody talks like I do. And people have no problem reminding me that I talk fast and speak a lot. And I'm like, well, at least I keep it interesting. So I'm excited that you and I will be able to like have a good fucking time.
Yeah, I'm sure you have moments like this where I say something to my friends or my family and they're like, I understood nothing. Like, give it to me half the speed. So everyone can probably listen to this on 1x speed and it will sound like it's the normal 1.5 pod listen. I have been with my husband for 8 years. So when it comes to dating and talking about relationships, that's the one place where I feel like I want to help, but even when I try with my friends, they're like, you've been so out of the game. So I'm thrilled you're here because I can't do that for my people and I want to help them.
I'm excited because it's true. I've been in a relationship for a year and a half, but I've been in the trenches. So when people will come and say things like that, I'm like, oh, wait, let me guess. Here's where your thoughts go. And it's like, I know it because I was it. So let's go.
Perfect. Well, your story is one of my favorite kinds because you didn't set out to do this work that you're doing, you know. That's my favorite kind of story because I feel like when we just end up like falling into our passions and then like going head first and then realizing we can like create something beautiful and connect with others, it's so rewarding and it's so purposeful. So I was just like really interested when I looked at everything that you've experienced to get to where you are. You described yourself in your early years as like highly anxious, having daddy issues, the one who couldn't function. And, you know, your sister seemed to like have her life together and she was dating and you were thinking like, I'm the messed up one. I'm the one with the problems. What was that like feeling alone and that you needed to be fixed?
So it's funny. I never actually even thought I had a problem. I just thought I was a problem, right? Like, it's me, hi. Like, I really thought...
I'm the problem, it's me. You knew I was a Swiftie.
I knew, of course. I really genuinely believed like, oh no, I'm just a flawed garment is what I used to tell my mom. I'd be like, oh, I'm damaged goods. And my sister met her husband at 18, like kind of this, you know, they've been together forever and they have this beautiful marriage. And I felt inferior. I always felt like, oh, am I the only one? Because it's hard to see anxiety when it's happening internally, right? So I would be going out and dating and all of my friends were like, hey man, I've never had anyone like have this kind of bad luck. I was so anxious. I literally like could not function if I did not get a text back within minutes of sending one. Whereas now I'm like, I don't even have my phone for like 6 hours of the day. But I felt very alienated. I felt very alone and I felt like a snowflake, as if like I'm the only one going through this. So in 2022, when I was supposed to do Shark Tank, like I was supposed to be doing my clothing company software and like being an entrepreneur. I was taking clients as like a life coach kind of business type things. I never thought it was going to be a career for me. And so when Clem passed away, Shark Tank didn't happen. Like my whole world crumbled. I was like, I don't even have like more than maybe $100 to my name. I was like, I'm literally fucked.
And it's important to emphasize, you thought your plan was, I went to fashion school. I'm going to be this designer of this really important line that I know you still have today. And it doesn't happen because Shark Tank, right, they run out of time, they cancel the interview and you don't get to go.
Exactly.
So you're having like a whole life crisis.
I just remember like the guy I was dating was not there for Clem. Like he was the epitome of that, oh, he texts me every day and we had cute little pet names and he met all my friends and family after 2 weeks. But when I needed somebody there, he said, sorry, I'm watching a movie tonight. And I'm like, my best friend is leaving this earth. And like when Clem died, that was it for me.
And Clem is your dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was my best friend.
Oh, it's such a sweet name. It's a soul dog.
He's a soul dog.
Yeah.
It's like, I believe in that. And he was I remember saying like, he was my soulmate. And when he passed away, like that was it for me. I just thought like, okay, so I'm done. And that was actually when my friend, like we were at lunch and shout out to my friend Daria. And she just looked at me and she's like, I think you need to start a TikTok. And I was like, no, I can't do that. Nobody cares about me. Nobody cares about what I have to say, like my own limiting beliefs. And I started a TikTok. And then the TikTok started into, oh, I guess this is going well. I'll start a podcast. And then here we are. All of a sudden, my entire life changed. And I'm like talking about doing a TV show, writing a book, doing this with you.
Right.
Never in my life expecting to be in the best relationship of my life, living out my dream, having a career. But I think the reason I also want to share this is because under all of that, like I still have anxiety. I still have my own issues. And I really wanted to clarify that because it's like we could do all of the stuff, right? We could do the healing and the da-da-da-da-da-da. But at the end of the day, like, you're still a human. That stuff doesn't go away. What it taught me was like tools I needed. Like, I got to the mountain that I have to climb and I'm not as scared because I have what I need. The mountain didn't get easier. It's just that I now know how to climb it.
It's so important because the messiness of not getting what you wanted and working so hard for something and having tunnel vision and not even having the autonomy to choose the pivot. I mean, I just had Cammie Crawford on, who I love, and she talked about the power of the pivot, like change your mind, change what you want. I love that. It's so empowering. You were forced to change course. But it's important because when that happens to people in life, you never know if, like, I love the quote of, like, you know, life's rejection is God's protection. Yeah. Just like there's some higher thing that I'm destined to do, and it's pointing me there. When you say there was this man, though, that didn't show up for you when Clem passed away, was this the same ex who ended up being your husband?
No. That guy, oof, thank God, that was years prior. No, this was the guy I literally dated right before I met my current partner. And I had really, like, all of 2022, I changed the way I dated. And I changed the way I dated because I actually stood up to my dad. My dad had disowned me for like the 1500th time in my life. And I was always scared that everyone was going to leave me because my father would. So when I stood up to the big bad wolf, and the person that was leaving me was the person I finally had a voice to. And I don't think we talk enough about, like, standing up to your parents and saying, like, just because you brought me into this world doesn't mean I need to keep you in my life. Because he's a narcissist and he's incredibly verbally abusive and was physically, like, there was a lot of things that I wasn't able to move past from.
This is your dad.
Yeah. And so once I stood up to him, I completely, like, I started setting boundaries with people I was dating. I started speaking up. I started taking up space, giving myself permission to have a need and say, no, it's not that I'm too much. This is a normal thing. I started to weed out people. So when I met this guy, at first he came off very, like I said, texting me every single day, doing all the things that the internet tells us to do, right? Oh, if he doesn't text you every day, he doesn't like you. Well, I had this person and he was there, no problem when things were good. The minute adversity hit, hey, my dog just got a diagnosis that I didn't expect, nowhere to be seen. Couldn't handle it. I broke up with him 2 weeks later. And at that point, when you lose everything, you have nothing left to lose. You start to surrender. You're like, you know what? I'm just going to keep showing up. I met my partner 4 days later.
Oh, you've said before that, so you're divorced.
Yeah.
So your ex-husband, you've said, was basically you marrying your father. So kind of like repeating the behavior that you experienced in childhood. Were you aware that you were repeating those patterns at the time? And how common is that for people to seek out a partner that's helping replay and reenact these familial experiences and trauma?
Prior to doing the work, that's probably what you're going to do, because we have to look at it as, like, I've been studying neuroscience. I think it's so fascinating how our brain works. Our brain loves familiarity. Our brain loves patterns. And so when we think about that limbic system, the amygdala in the back of our head, that part stops growing when you're 6. So it holds on. That's the executive function of the emotions, feelings, and all of those. And so when we are not able to turn on that logical part of our brain and we always go back to that, that's how, we'll say, like, oh, I feel like a kid, or you'll react and you're like, whoa, I don't know where that came from. I feel like I'm 6 again. Without the cognitive ability and the awareness to understand, holy smokes, I am repeating patterns. This is my father. Your brain, all it knows is they're stressed, they're shutting down. This is something familiar. Do what they always do. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that, like, my partner and I, my ex, we met at the same age my parents did. We got married at the same place that they did. Like, it was so, and I thought that as a sign. Oh my God, we're meant to be, right? Because he was the person I thought. I remember from the one, and he was my twin flame. No, he was incredibly abusive verbally, and I was not in a happy relationship. No one knew. I was about 30 pounds lighter than I am now. And so for anyone, exactly. Yeah, not healthy. And people were starting to ask, like, hey, are you okay? And I think I actually wasn't aware that I even had trauma until I started therapy and started explaining. I take that back. No, I learned it when, after we broke up, he left me to go away and I was a shell of a human. And I looked up Narcissist Anonymous groups, and in New York there was one, so I went. And I remember sharing my story because you share your story. And I'll never forget, I looked over and a woman who was in a relationship, a very happy one, she would still go there to help. And she looked at me and just said, honey, that ain't normal. And I didn't. I was like, huh? Like, I had no idea. And I was like, it's not. Like, I'm not supposed to be called, like, all these names. Like, somebody's not supposed to belittle me and berate me. Like, that's not normal. And then when I started therapy, I started saying, I feel like I keep having these meditations with a child. I see little me. Then I started to learn like, oh my God, that's inner child work. Started that whole trajectory. Following our patterns is actually quite normal because our brain has cemented that in from childhood. And when that's all you know, that's all you're going to repeat, because a part of me was like, hey, I couldn't get my dad, but maybe if I can change him, that will help satisfy the needs I had as a child.
Yeah. First of all, God bless those wise women in those support groups, because I have a similar memory of a time I went to a meeting of sorts, and this woman at the end just said to me like, hey, like, here's how I think about this thing. And I remember I've just never forgotten like what she shared with me in that moment, and it was so helpful. So shout out to those women, first of all. And then secondly, as you talk about this, and this is it's like so uncomfortable to verbalize, like our patterns that are not favorable, right? And if I try to think, have I ever tried to like live out a familiar pattern? I think about it in dating. I really feel like when I look back at the guys I was attracted to and wanted to like win over their adoration or their attention, had like similar characteristics to my older brother, because he and I love him and we're so close. And it's weird to talk about because you're like, ew, I would literally never want to date my brother. But when you grow up in a system where like you want their approval and you want more attention from them and you just want them to be like, you're great and you're loved and you're appreciated. Like, I feel like a lot of the guys I wanted to date in high school and like my first year of college were the guys who were like also aloof and you couldn't really tell if they liked you. And, they maybe gave you one comment that was like validating that you'd cling to. Like, I look back and they're like kind of asshole guys that I was like wanting to date, because the guys who just came and say, hey, would you like a drink? Would you like to be taken care of? And here's everything. I'm being really transparent and lovely. I was like, that's boring.
And it's like, thank you for saying that, because we assume healthy equals boring. And it's like, no. All that's happening is it's just you aren't getting that neurotransmitter a cocktail that you're used to. Because when we look at texting and like, it's so funny, I was just with Cammie. I love Cammie. She's the best. And I love what she said. But when we even look just at dating, right? And just relationships and just how things work like this, the brain, again, we love familiarity. It loves patterns, and it also loves addictions. Our brain is a little drug dealer, and it loves dopamine and all those neurotransmitters. But
it's a little drug dealer.
It is, like,
that's iconic.
It's like my friend Britt Frank is a neuropsychotherapist, and also she's like, it's a drug dealer, don't believe it. Because we have to look at our brain. It's not designed to help us grow. It's trying to keep you safe. And so all of your life you learned coping mechanisms. You had your older brother like that, so you learned, like for my sister, she just disclosed, my brother used to tell her, be the cool girl, don't have emotions, guys don't like that. Okay, well, where did he learn that? My father. So he learned to shut your emotions off in order to have a relationship with my dad. He then instilled that on my sister. My sister learned, it's not cool, shut down. Now she's in her almost 40. The girl can't communicate. She's just learning. I love my sister. She's just learning how to express herself. Who taught her that? So we have to look at, if I have a pattern right now, if I'm saying, here's what I say I want in a relationship, right? I want to feel safe. I want to feel seen, heard, and understood. I want reciprocity. I want consistency. I want all those things, right? First of all, you even have to know what you want. And that's in and of itself a journey. Then we have to look at, well, what is it that I'm receiving? And then have to start to look at, well, how can I take accountability for the disconnect? Because as much as I'd love to blame everybody else and go, oh, no, it's them, they're the asshole. After a while, I have to go, okay, but then why do you keep allowing it?
Right.
What's coming up for you that, is this familiar? Is this what you were taught as a kid, that this is love? Love equals someone putting you down. Love equals someone leaving you. That's why you don't trust people. It's okay. We don't have to create a narrative of shame or blame around that. But if we're not cognizant of it, then we can't understand, well, where did I learn that? How can I reparent that? And then how can I put space between my reaction, my response, so that I can actually come from a place of empowerment and not from a little girl that wants to be chosen.
Mm-hmm. And that is tough for people to swallow. It's not fun to recognize, oh, hey, like, I have a role in this. No one deserves to be abused or to be a victim, but there's something that in the wiring or the makeup of the person where they're in this dynamic and they're not out of it. And I think it's super important to do that work and go back to recognize, hey, what is going on here, that this is the pattern time and time again.
If you can take radical accountability of your life, that's a superpower. Mm-hmm. To be able to stop, like even when my partner and I have conflict, like you have a husband, conflict is part of a relationship. You can't have repair if you don't have the conflict. Repair is where you have intimacy. Like if I tell my partner something and he's dismissive or rude, like my ex, he would just be very, here we go again, always making an issue. That was gaslighting me and diminishing me. And then I'd go, oh my God, Sabrina, you're too much. Here you go. You're going to lose him. That was me going back into my old pattern, into my way. So yes, I could blame him and say he's an asshole and he did all of those things. But then where was I to go, but I don't deserve this and I need to walk away? Never blaming or shaming that part of me. She didn't know, she was scared. But if I don't take radical accountability of it, well then now that I have a partner, I'm not scared to open my mouth to him, because if I am, the relationship's done.
And a lot of people, I think, sometimes assume, especially if we're going to gender, like in a heterosexual relationship, oh, the man should like do all these things and I'm the woman, so I just get to coast and like I get to have my crazy days and whatever, and like he gets to tolerate me and happy wife, happy life. And I think one of the biggest things that's helped Max and I have success is me over time realizing like when I'm out of line or when I'm doing something that's not fair. And I can think of a time, I think it was like a year ago, we were at some party at night and Max was chatting with a girl in the kitchen, and totally normal. You're allowed to talk to the opposite sex. For some reason on this night, with the little mixture of whatever I was drinking, with no reason to ever like feel threatened that, you know, Max isn't loyal, I just was starting to spiral. Like, what are they talking about? And oh my God, did they hook up before in college and I don't know about it and I'm the idiot, and just spiraling. And I had the awareness to be like, I'm not going to bring this up tonight because we're drinking. The man has done nothing wrong. And so then it was like a few days later when I gathered my thoughts and I was calm and I just said, I want to talk to you about something. I said, you've done nothing wrong. I'm letting you in on my emotions because I always want us to be like as close as possible. And we had a really mature conversation where I was like, okay, cool. My husband's up to speed on my emotions. There's been no blame placed. There's no argument. There's no fight. But I still feel like we're growing together because he's informed and I'm not making it his responsibility to mitigate or prevent me from ever feeling jealousy again in my life.
That was beautifully handled, because what happened is you took a trigger. Wait, what's a trigger? A trigger is a cue to your nervous system that you're in danger. What we misunderstand in this world is like a trigger meaning like, oh, well, he told me to shut up or was rude. It's like, no, that's not a trigger. That's disrespectful, right? Versus what is a trigger? It's a neutral action. He was talking to somebody else, right? There's nothing inherently right or wrong about what happened.
Right.
That's where we have to say, and you took full accountability of, whoa, I do the same thing. I'll tell my partner, hey, I was triggered. This impacted me. I'm not saying this is your issue, but you know what this reminded me? Like my partner said no to me once. I just said, hey babe, do you want to do this? And he went, nah, and walked off. And all of a sudden I had this wave and I was like, okay, the pinch doesn't match the ouch. This reaction to this doesn't make sense. So I was already cognizant to be like, okay, this isn't his issue. Same kind of as you. Processed, and I was like, hey, how old do I feel right now? What's happening in my body? And I was like, there's this heaviness in my chest. That's how I would feel when my father would go and walk off. And so when I turned to my partner and said, hey, can I just share something with you? Again, you didn't do anything wrong. I was like, I got triggered when you said no, because it really reminded me, my dad's very dismissive and he would just and walk out of the room. And that just made me feel like I lost that connection to you. Moving forward, could you just maybe even say something else? And he was like, oh my God, of course. Thank you for telling me. I would have no idea.
Yeah.
That's how you handle it like a goddamn adult, to be like, hey, this is on me. This is not for you to own. And I think so often we're used to, because I think a lot of people are looking for a parent, not a partner. They're reacting to people as if that's their mom or dad. And when I get the emails of like, this person's all these terrible things to me, what do I do? And I'm like, oh, so you still think you're a little boy or a little girl that's stuck in a room that can't make choices. You now get to empower yourself to be like, oh no, it might not be what I want, but it's what I need. And I now get to make decisions from an adult and not from a little girl.
How does someone know when they're dating, is this work throughable? Is this a cross the line and it's not worth my time? Because I could see people getting that construed.
Oh, 100%. I think, and it's a great question. We have to look at two important things. When I met my partner, people look at us now and they're like, you guys are so healthy and secure. And no, that's not what it was when I met him. He's incredibly avoidant. I'm more anxious. We worked together at like, hey, I'm going to call you on your shit. Whoa, thank you so much. I needed that. Here's my course of action. Like, that's growth. If I don't know about you, but if I stopped growing now, I'd be very bored, right? Like, where else are we to go? To me, every day and every opportunity is an opportunity for growth. So there's two parts to this. The first part is not including the other person and first taking stock of two things and being able to differentiate. is there a real danger here? Did that person say something disrespectful, rude, dismissive, completely just out of line and inappropriate? Okay, if I can take that out of the equation, no, none of that happened. Okay, so let me check in with me. Was this my gut reaction? Something just instantly came, very calming of, I don't like this? Or was it anxiety? Is there a narrative that's starting to play? Is my body starting to get involved? Am I starting to have this tightness in my chest and these pangs all over my body? Am I starting to ruminate and spiral? That's anxiety, because anxiety is a fear of the future. And our brain loves to go into overdrive logic. Our brain thinks, instead of her feeling her sadness right now, because it's going to be way too overwhelming, let's outthink our way through this, because that's a coping mechanism. I can keep her safe so that she doesn't have to feel this feeling. That's usually what we're avoiding, is a feeling. And feelings are fleeting. So if we actually allowed ourselves to process, takes 90 seconds, we'd be feeling better. So that's the first thing. Then the second aspect is, how does your partner receive it? So when I went to my partner and I said Valentine's Day, I'll give you a great example. 3 months into our dating courtship, Valentine's Day rolls around and I was like, so what are we doing for Valentine's Day?
Right, because it's new.
It's new. His response was, nothing, I don't celebrate. And I just looked and I was like, whoa. And so I remember I stopped and I was like, okay, I'm not like feeling, there's no narrative here. It's just that didn't make me feel good. I felt dismissed. So I went to him and said, just because you don't celebrate doesn't mean that that's not something for me. You made a decision without me. You made a choice on something that's together for yourself. And I didn't feel like you included me, and you want me to be your girlfriend. And that was all I said. And he looked at me and he was like, I fucked up. I am so sorry. Can you share more? How did that experience impact you? That was why I gave him a chance.
Yeah.
Because someone stayed curious. Someone made me feel seen, heard, and understood. They listened. They didn't dismiss me. They weren't ridiculous. They didn't start to gaslight. You're being ridiculous. You're being too anxious. No.
Right.
You were allowing your partner to show up for you, but you also have to show up for yourself and be able to articulate that like an adult, because that will make or break. If I had told him that and he said, you're being ridiculous. No, I would have been like, no, I don't think I am actually. I'm not going to continue here.
Yeah.
I don't want a partner that's going to dismiss me or discredit me or bring me down. So I think it's about, what do you bring to your partner, right? That's the first thing. How do they receive it? And then do their actions and words align? If they say they're going to do the work, if they say, you're right, I want to work on this, what's the progress? If I go another month and nothing has happened, that's going to be another conversation of, hey, I don't now trust you. Your words and actions didn't align.
Yeah.
But I think we need to see the pendulum can't swing. We can't have every single issue that happens in the day of walk away and leave them. It's like, all right, guys, come on. We can't be that sensitive. But on the same token, we also don't want to stay too long to where your needs stop being met. That's, I think, the divide.
And I love that you say the word needs, because needs and expectations, I think, can get really mixed up. And I've seen this in my friends and other relationships of just like someone saying, well, these are all the things I need. And it's this long laundry list that's like, I need 7 texts a day. I need to be FaceTimed. I need you to like always ask me what I'm like. And it's like, no, you don't need that to survive. Nope. You have expectations that are unrealistic for someone to meet. And so I just can't emphasize enough like how we need to encourage people to think more critically about like, how am I showing up, and like, am I valid in this and am I not? Because actually something Max has helped me realize, and it's funny because my mom used to always tell me growing up, like, it's important to express how you feel. And I think she had the best intentions. Like, I feel blank. Like, whenever I had a hard conversation with a coach or a friend, she'd just say, tell them how you feel, because no one can tell you how to feel. And that was true. But then when I got into my relationship with Max and I'd say, well, I feel blah, 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 blah. He's like, just because you feel that doesn't mean that you're right about the situation. And I was like, wait, what?
Feelings aren't facts. Exactly. It's like, because I could sit here and be like, I feel like you were rude to me. And you're like, whoa. All I said was no. I didn't mean for that. That it's valid. I'll never discredit. Hey, that's valid how you feel. But and I'm so glad you said about the needing and the texting, because like let's just like go on to that. I get that every day. When you are at the hospital, you need a partner that's going to support you, that's going to show up for you. You don't need a partner that's going to text you. Texting, especially before you're in a relationship, like 1 or 2 dates, we just got to know each other, this is all really new, that's anxiety, because your body fears, if I don't hear from them, I'm not safe. If I don't hear from them, I lose the connection. I feel insecure. I don't feel like this person is going to remember me. I don't feel like this person is going to care about me. Where did that come from me personally? Well, my dad would literally leave. If you would even cry, he'd hit you and walk out. I learned I'm too much. But then not enough. It's that fun amalgamation. And so if I'm going on to somebody and saying, well, I need you to text me every day, my response is, great, so you're only okay if you have me in your life? That's way too much pressure. You shouldn't need to have someone text you every day for you to be in a relationship with them before you're in a relationship with them. Once you're exclusive, once you're like, hey, you and I are doing this, then of course you can be like, hey, I'd really love to text you every day so that we can maintain our connection. Great. Prior to that, that's not a need, that's a want. And let me tell you, I've had that. I had the guy that texts me every day, morning, noon, and night, and all that. Where was he when I needed him? Nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest adjustments from my high school dating to my relationship with Max. Was he is just has such a secure attachment style. So he just, like, these long texts, he was like, what do you mean? Like, we're all good to go. Like, we had a great date last night. What? Now you're waking up and you don't have a paragraph of how much I like you and you're second guessing it? And so I think I started our relationship a bit more anxiously attached, but with so much potential to become secure attachment, which is where I am now, to the point where, I mean, we just have an ongoing joke of like, we don't text each other.
Same, yeah, same. My boy, every time I text him, he's like, cool, we're doing this? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I've learned, I'm like, just call him. Same. My partner, when we met, set a boundary. He was like, I don't want to text.
How important do you think it is for people to recognize their attachment style and work through it? We have anxious attachment, secure attachment, avoidant attachment, and disorganized attachment.
So it's one of those, like, it's a blessing and a curse, right? Like, oh my God, look at these awarenesses. Like, when I first found out about anxious attachment style, the first thing I did was cry, because I was like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. Like, there's a thing, right? It's like when you go to the doctor and you tell them there's something wrong, and then you finally get a prognosis. You're like, oh my God, thank God I wasn't making this up. But I think what's happened is, like, the pendulum is swinging way too far. Attachment styles are for you to understand yourself, for you to understand, oh, my hypervigilance when when I'm constantly scanning for safety but they didn't text me this morning. That's hypervigilance, because you're seeing this as a break in connection. And as a child, I had to be hypervigilant because I was watching my dad's facial expressions to see when he was going to explode. As a child, that was my defense mechanism, and it kept me safe. That doesn't work in my adult relationships because I'm not dating my father. And I think the issue is now it's been hijacked. All of a sudden I don't date avoidance. And it's like, well, first of all, anxious people are avoidant because we're avoiding looking at ourselves. We're avoiding, by a lot of people with anxiety, especially anxious attachment.
So true.
Everything is no, you. Girl, I can't tell you how many girls I'll get that'll message me. You speak too fast. I don't like it. I need you to slow down. Otherwise, I refuse to listen. And it's like, that's a choice you're making. I get to make the choice as well to say, get fucked. I don't need to change who I am. But anxious attachment, I'm uncomfortable. You need to change for me because I'm uncomfortable. Okay, so what you're doing is you're avoiding looking at what's coming up for you, and instead it's about the other person.
Right.
Avoidants are also anxious. This is why I say, like, there's such an amalgamation, like it gets really messy and kind of fuzzy. I think learning about attachment styles so you better understand yourself and your partner is a beautiful thing, but let the buck stop there. It's not to diagnose. I can't tell you, every day I get emails, this guy, I think he's a dismissive avoidant, but he might be disorganized. And I'm like, you know what? Let's get rid of all that. How do you feel when you're with this person? Do you like this person? Do you see progress? Doesn't matter their diagnosis. But let's just look at, does their behavior work for you?
Yeah.
I'm more anxious. My partner's more avoidant. We're now earned secure. But that doesn't mean that my anxiety and his avoidance doesn't still flare up. And if people looked at that as, oh, this is a red flag, it's like, if you're going to avoid avoidance, you're going to be alone for a long time because it's human nature to kind of avoid things that make us uncomfortable.
Oh my gosh, you're incredible. I could talk to you for hours. I asked my audience for some questions that are really just focused on dating and the patterns that come up. And so I kind of want to, like, lightning round-ish.
Let's go.
Ask you all these things. So some people feel like they do the work by themselves, and then they start dating or talking to someone and everything immediately unravels and they're back to their old habits. How can you do the work if you're not in a relationship and then maintain it when you start talking to someone?
That's part of doing the work, right? That's like saying, oh, I go to the gym and everything's great, but then when I'm home, I don't want to go back. And it's like, it's discipline. That's you have the power. You will never be as triggered as you will in a relationship. And that's why when people say, I'd rather be single, it's like, no. You can only heal so much without another mirror, without a trigger. Now it's about what tools do you have? What coping mechanisms are you utilizing? Are you talking to somebody? Do you have a sounding board? We need to prep. So when you're going to go into dating, it's going to be a little scary and you're going to learn along the way. Because when I met my partner, I thought, I'm the secure one. I'm good. I'm the one that doesn't have any issues. The minute we started dating, I was like, oh, there they are. But I have the tools I need to be able to implement them. They don't go away. It just means that by regulating your nervous system and showing up, you now give yourself a choice.
Right. And I almost would say too, like, can you take an hour before you respond so you can really check in with yourself, and like, can you journal while you're doing the work and then refer to your journals doing the process? Can you reflect on the relationships you've had, you know, so that they have something tangible they're looking at as well? What are your thoughts on, you know, obviously we have a biological clock and that can create a lot of pressure for women, and I think it can also lead to this desperation. And Max and I talk about this a lot. He'll say, if we weren't together right now, you would lose your shit. He goes, forget you, Lainey, my mom. He goes, the two of you will be batshit crazy trying to get you married. And he's probably not wrong. So, I mean, I sympathize with people who are like trying so hard to make the wrong thing work because they want something to work.
Oh, 100%. My friend and I were just talking about this. Like, at the end of the day, if you want a child, sacrifices are going to have to be made, right? Like, I'm 34. My partner and I but here's also the thing. Before I even go into the fucking sacrifices that need to be made, if you are a woman that has a clock that wants children, I personally don't, so to me, it wasn't as big of a deal. But if you are, then we need you to own that aspect. It cannot be, oh, well, I think this guy might, oh, but it's okay if he doesn't want kids. You're wasting your fucking time. Every time you go on a date and go, oh, I'm not going to ask about kids. I don't want to be too much. Great. Now, if you find out in 6 months this person doesn't want any kids, there you go. You just wasted 6 months of your life. It's okay to take up space. It's okay to say, no, I want children. I want a family. I want a husband. And if that's cool, if you're not somebody that wants that, great. So off the bat, we need to have empowerment of what it is that we want. But then at that same time, we got to make sacrifices. Like, you're not going to get everything you want. And if you really want the kids and the family and all that, even my friend and I were just talking. She said, do I think my husband is the perfect person for me? No. She was like, I know that there's a better match out there for me. But I'm in my 30s now. If I'm going to go out there, I might not be able to have kids. And I know I could have kids with this person. I could do that. So she made that choice.
Do you feel like she settled?
No, she very much loves him and he loves her to the moon and back, but she's just like, listen, we have our issues like anybody else. And she's like, but I weigh it out. Like, the issues we have are not enough for me to walk away from this relationship that I have. It's just about being an adult and like starting to say, okay, if I want children, I'm 37. Okay, well, then I either have to say I do it on my own, or if I meet somebody that maybe this person is a little shorter than I might like, you know what? That's okay. I really do want to have children. They check all the other aspects of it. I think it's just being realistic of like where you are in your life and making a choice from a place of power.
That's so hard though, because I almost feel like it sounds like take the best thing while it's there, and then maybe waking up in 20 years and thinking, was I too panicked and I could have had 5 more years and I could have met the right person and I don't feel 100% in love, you know, like people waking up and thinking they settled.
That's part of trusting yourself though, right? It's part of knowing I only know the information I know right now. In 10 years, could I look back and say, I made the wrong choice. I chose the wrong person. Of course, but I didn't know that now. That's why I'm saying, like, look for the important things. Like, if you want to build a family with somebody, do you have the same morals, ethos, ethics? Do you really genuinely align on how you see a future? How do you want to raise children? How that is important more than, well, what kind of job does he have? It's like, of course, that's important to see, but is he driven? Does he have a career that he can grow in? Maybe he's not a millionaire today, but could he do that in 2 years? We have to stop thinking that we're going to get this perfect package at the door.
Yes.
And understand that part of this means, yeah, we're going to both make compromises. You're not going to be everything I want. I'm not going to be everything you want. But we have the important shit down to where, especially because, like, listen, I went through my entire 20s thinking I could find better. And I never did because I didn't know what the fuck I was looking for. I didn't know what better meant until I learned this is what I need. This satisfies me for now. In 10 years, I might change.
Yeah. And if I can, I love how you said, you might not be what I want, I might not be what you want, but you're the person I want to figure this out with.
Exactly.
I think is the additional part of that, right? Wait, so do you believe in when you know you know?
I don't, because I didn't. And so that's the thing is, like, I don't believe in these sweeping generalizations because they never worked for me. So same with if he wanted to, he would. It's like, okay, maybe if he wanted to call you, he would. Well, he didn't want to call you, right? But not, well, I want a relationship. If he did, well, if he really wanted me, he'd change. And it's like, whoa. That doesn't have any space for bandwidth or understanding how humans actually work. I think if you know, it adds a lot of pressure because, like, I didn't know for 6 months. And I'm not waking up being like, this is the one for me. I'm like, he works for now. I work for him for now. Maybe in 10 years, I might change.
Right.
I could grow and evolve. But I think when you know that this is somebody for you, you'll feel a lot more secure and safe. You'll understand the difference.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely a believer in when you know, just because, like,
worked for you.
Yeah, that is what worked for me. I feel like also another way that I talk about this with friends who ask me like, how do you know? Because they're dating or they're trying to figure it out. It's like, can you live your life without this person? And that is also like a backdoor way to figure out like that, you know.
Can I also add to that as well? 100%. And then can you also live with this person as they are? That is really important. Not, well, if he changes or if he did this, then yes. It's like, well, then you're not accepting who they are in front of you. That's also when you know. Because what is love is, I love you. I like the good parts of you. I'm in love with you means I've seen every part of you and I still choose you. I'm still in love with you. That's when I have to say, I could look and say, good, bad, ugly, I still choose you. That's when you'll know.
Yeah. I'm so fired up. I love these types of conversations. Okay, a few more.
Yeah.
They're not texting you back quickly. They're not asking questions and like keeping the convo going. They're doing more than the bare minimum, but the text game is pretty weak.
Okay, so my thing here is that's one aspect of a lot of other aspects. Okay, so he's not texting you a ton, but is he making consistent plans? Is he showing up when he does? When he's with you, is he making eye contact, asking questions of depth? Are you able to ask questions of, so what kind of relationship do you want? We have to look at a comprehensive...
Yeah, the whole scope.
The whole scope. Because what happens is we look at one thing and go, but that's it. Because there's a lot of clickbait out there. If he doesn't text you every day, he doesn't like you. Okay, but where is the science and the data to point to that? My partner didn't text me every day and we live together and we're looking at rings right now. So it's not that it's right or wrong. That's what I'm trying to be here. Black and white thinking of it's this or it's this means, truthfully, that you actually haven't really understood what healing means. Healing means that there's gray. You start to create those paint strokes of, oh, I see it. Okay, maybe not everybody connects with text. But when I look, this guy is also, when I'm with him, he doesn't answer any questions. He doesn't ask me about me. He doesn't want to, we've been dating for 6 months and he doesn't want to post anything of me on social. When I bring up relationships, he gets scared. Girl, the texting's the least of your worries.
Yeah, so true. In that same vein, let's say someone's talking to someone and it's going well and there's interest and it seems mutual and they meet up on the weekends with the friend group and, you know, find each other in the crowded bars, but the person has not asked them on a date. What's the way to communicate? I'd like to go on a date. Are you all for like anyone can ask about the date? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I know you and I were talking about this off camera of like, just ask, right? Like if I personally, for me, I'd rather just know. I have no fear of rejection is usually why people stop doing that. Fear of rejection comes from childhood, right? I'm scared that you're going to ridicule and judge me for who I am. You're going to shut me down. But I have more to reward than I do to risk. So for me, it's something as simple as like, hey, you and I keep running in here, but why don't we plan something? Do you want to grab a drink this weekend? Something even just as simple as I found this new yoga studio. You want to go take class with me and grab a smoothie after? Right. That way, it's like, if you're not sure, you can leave it as something that's more casual.
So what about, and I could see this so being me, like the person who wants to be sought after. I could see myself being like, I just don't want a man who's not going to ask me out.
That's okay. You have every right to say that that's what works for you, right? Like, but we have to remember, you bought that ticket, then you need to ride that ride, right? Because if you're someone who's like, well, I don't want to do any of that, it's like, okay, well then but you can't be surprised if opportunities pass you, but you want to sit passively. Everybody is entitled to anything that they want, but then we also have to know that comes with a price, right? So if you're not comfortable asking a guy out, so be it. But then if we're not going to express ourselves to people and then we don't get comfortable, then we're not really being honest and vulnerable.
Right. Even when I think back on like Max and I, you know, he was chasing me for a while and I wasn't ready. And then I went back to kind of like re-spark it because, you know, rightfully so. He was like, she doesn't want to date me. Right. So I think like, to your point, if someone says, okay, like the type of man I want is going to ask me out, then also like you should be flirting and expressing that you like them. Like you can't just like sit there and never lift a finger, do a thing, say a thing, smile and be like, they should make my dreams come true.
Exactly.
Do you believe in the right person but the wrong time?
No, I think what makes somebody the right person is that they're in your life at the right time. That's why you're for me. If I met my partner 6 years ago, right person, wrong time. No, he just wasn't for me. Because here's the reality. I'm not that same person. I've grown, I've evolved, I've changed. If we reconnect, like you and Max reconnected, you were a different version of yourself. So it was just not the right time for you guys personally, but you also weren't the right person at that time. You changed, you evolved, you grew, you reached out to him and you guys made that work. So I think if you want, listen, let people go with love. My mama always says, for now. So if you're like, oh my God, but this person, I believe in my heart they're for me, let them go. Fine. If that person doesn't want anything with you, okay. If you're meant for me, you're going to come back.
I know.
And if not, that's okay.
I had that conversation with someone recently who is, figuring stuff out in the dating world. And they said, but if it is the right person, it will work out later. And I said, I love that.
100%.
I love that.
You and Max are the testament to that. It wasn't right at the time. And then you even said, like, I reached back out, but you did.
And when I realized that he was like amazing and the one for me and I was being so stupid, I was like, oh my God, I hope you still like me. Fuck, is it too late? Is he dating someone else? I was like so grateful that he still was into you, girl.
Of course he was. How could he not be? And you'd be silly not to be. But you surrendered and you were like, I'll give it a shot. And the universe was like, hey, this is for you.
Yeah.
We don't need to force something when it's meant for you.
Yeah. When do you think it's okay to sleep with them?
I slept with my partner on the first date, so I might not be the best person to ask. I'm very intimacy positive because, truthfully speaking, my partner and I wouldn't be together if we didn't do that. I wasn't that into him. I wanted to get laid. I'm going to say it. I'm a woman. I had needs. The guy I had before him had erectile dysfunction. It was awful. And all I thought was, we met on Hinge, and I was like, I'm going to get laid. Perfect. I'm just going to get some. And I left being like, I might never see this guy again. And he kept pursuing me. And I was like, oh, okay. Even his response, I'm like, why did you? He's like, we had the best sex. He was like, why would I not want to see you? I knew I wanted a relationship and I was into you. That it's somebody's intentions. Now, that comes with a same thing here. I made a choice as a woman that I wanted to pursue that. If that doesn't work for you, you do you, baby. My issue is when we bait it. I'm not sleeping with you for 3 months until you prove to me. And it's like, whoop, 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 whoop. That's never going to work. Don't gamify that. Do what feels right for you, but also know, like, people don't know each other. Just because I've slept with guys on a second or third date, and then I was like, I am not into this guy, and I end up breaking it off.
Yeah.
You're allowed to do that, but we have to just also be, like, cognizant that intimacy is part of a relationship.
Do what for you is going to make you feel okay and sleep well at night. Don't do it and think, okay, this is what's going to make him tell me he loves me. This is what's going to make us get closer, because you cannot know. And so I think it has to be like on your terms, what you want. I never baited Max because I was never like, you have to do these things and then I'll sleep with you. But I was like, I will not get intimate with you unless I know we love each other. And I never even said that to him. That was just my internal feeling. And so then when we got to that point, which by the way, like the right person will never pressure you. The fact that we didn't even have that conversation and we naturally then fell in love with each other and then that was the course that we took, and that's what I needed.
100%. And the only reason I always say of like there's no right or wrong is because two different experiences, same result. So I think follow your gut. If you're like, hey, this doesn't feel right, don't do it. I will never. But don't, like you said, don't do it to gamify it. Don't do it because there's a dating coach out there saying not to kiss for 3 months. And I'm like, okay, dude, we don't live under a rock here. Like,
I hate all the games.
Stop.
I hate all the games. There's so many games. If they text you this, text them that. If they don't text you on this day, text them on that day. If they ask you out, then you have to just be yourself. Be real. Just be human. And hopefully 2 good people will match.
Anytime people see me and Ryan on lives or stuff, they're like, oh my God, he's so supportive of you. He loves you so much. You can see it. The way he looks at me. I'm sure the way Max looks at you. And I'm like, you want to know how I got that? How do you think? I showed up as myself. I had no qualms about it. I was like, I'm going to ask you all the questions that people say not to. I'm going to say things. I'm going to talk. I'm going to be unapologetically me. And he fell in love with me. Otherwise, this would never have worked. What are you so scared of? You know what? Here's the thing. I think people think they're scared of them not liking you. But I actually think the opposite. I think they're more scared of them liking you because me going, hey, I see your value. I see your worth. I see you. Now you need to see it. And if your core belief is, I'm not, you're never going to receive it.
Holy mother of mic drop. That's the end of the episode, kids. Thank you, Sabrina.
Of course. Thank you for
everyone's favorite, no bullshit dating coach.
Thanks, man. I'm excited.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you coming on Real Pod. I love this conversation. I can't wait to hear what everyone thinks of it. And you're a rock star. I can't wait to come on your show.
I was about to say, I can't wait. I'm going to have you undo the work. So we're going to have a nice little swap and people will hear both sides.
Love it. Thank you.